never smiled. I have never seen that guy smile before in this life.
Okay. What I have up is our journal. This is the same journal that we used yesterday, and in fact, you will notice they have April 1st and April 2nd transactions recorded on there. Oh my gosh, I still have money in my pocket. So when we look at this, it's exactly the same. I'm going to do a pretty quick review of what we learned yesterday. I'm going to go really fast. Don't try to figure out how to do transactions. Just listen so you can review with me. Okay, so on the very far left, we have the date column. The very first column for the date column is going to be where it goes the month. The next column over is going to be the day. Please remember, every single transaction has to have a date. We could have 5 transactions with the same date, which means we might have April 3rd, April 3rd, April 3rd. Each transaction has its own date. I say that because some students get in trouble and they lose points because they don't put the date for each transaction. The next spot we have here is going to be our account title. The account title that goes here are going to be the names of the account that we have to use that doesn't have a special column. We have 2 special columns, sales and cash. Okay, so if we have a transaction that uses accounts other than sales and cash, we have to write our account title here. Then we have our doc number. Document numbers are going to be our source documents, and our source documents tell us what to do. Right now in Happy Accounting Land, they write for us the transaction. Stop filling in things. Stop. Turn around. They write for us the transaction, paid cash for rent. In real life, nobody does that for you. What you have is you have a check, you have a receipt, you have a memorandum, you have a sales invoice, and you look at it and you have to figure out what it's for. So when your parents go to pay their phone bill, no one writes down on a piece of paper, paid cash for telephone bill, right? So the source documents is truly what everyone looks at to determine what the transactions are. So we are always going to have a letter and a number. The letter indicates the type of form it is, like C for a check, okay, or R for a receipt, and then the number after it is just going to be the consecutive numbering that go with it. Now that column that says post-reference, I said this whole chapter we're going to skip it except in one instance, and I'll teach you that one later on. So for the most part, just know we're going to ignore that column. Then we have 5 columns that we put numbers in. I can count fast. And you will notice that when we put numbers in these columns, we start here. This is going to be our cents column. Then we go hundreds, and then we go thousands. We always make sure that we use columns with those types of lines because it helps us to keep our numbers lined up. Right now in Happy Accounting Land, we don't have any cents. You're all senseless. Thank you. So it's going to be much easier to do the numbers. So all we have to do is if we type in 375 and hit enter, it'll put in 0.00 for us. Remember that your debits and credits must always equal in every transaction. You need to break your transactions down. If I say paid cash for rent, you need to think to yourself, my 2 accounts are rent, expense, and cash. And then you take one of those accounts and you say, okay, rent expense. Rent expense is an expense. Do I have more expense or less expense? I have more. So therefore, rent expense would be debited or credited? Debited, right? Then I would do, if rent expense is being debited, therefore cash would have to be credited because you have to have a debit and a credit. You need to do that every day in your mind when I say a transaction. When I first started talking about transactions, I would ask you that question every time. As we do it more and more, I'm not going to refer back to the old ones. I would then add the new piece into what we need to learn for this chapter. And we're going to go through and record it. Now, what you're going to find is a little bit different. I talked about in this journal how on the side our rows are numbered. You're going to see right here for line 3 and 4. I don't like that Applia does this, but it has shading in these spots and not there, so then you as a student knows, all right, I know I don't have to put anything here. So I want to talk about why this transaction is like this. Okay? The reason that this line in our journal here, we have different shading, is that this line or this transaction is not going to use any special columns. Okay, so we're not going to put anything in sales or cash, so therefore we have to go through and put both of them under account title. Applia is very particular. You must have your debits listed before your credits. We recorded T accounts before where you had to put your debit account first. Same thing here. If you list your credit first and then your debit, Applia is going to say, wrong. You must put your debits first. It gets a little bit particular. Now, here's one of the things I've told you before, but it's been a while. When you go through and look at an assignment, if you did a bunch of things, but then you realized you put your credit first and it should have been your debit, conceptually, you have it right. You could go through and print out your assignment with the score on it from Applia and write on there why you should get points back. But you have to go through, you can't just say, I did it right, Applia marked it wrong. You have to give me accounting terms so I know you know why it was marked wrong, but why you should get some points back. You can even do that on a test. Some of you potentially could do that on the test we just took for some more points. But you have to look at it and understand from that perspective. I have one person that hasn't taken the test yet, so I know right now you can only see your score because I don't want you to be able to see the answer because the person who hasn't taken the test yet could go in and see what all the right answers are before they take it. So, Caleb, take the test. Okay? And I can't request you during ELT because I don't have ELT. No, I teach middle schoolers. So I can't request you for ELT to take up tests. And I can't have you come in because I don't have any open computers at that time also. ICT 8. So I wanted to point that out. So are we ready to nail some transactions? Yes. Let's do this. Okay. Journalizing entries in a 5-column journal. We're going to use our journal below, and our instructor, that is me, is going to guide you through the following examples. We have the list of accounts listed for us, so that is very nice. We have transactions April 5 through 9. Instruction number 1, journalize the transactions completed on the next blank line of page 1 of the journal. Source documents are abbreviated as follows. C check, M memorandum. Bing, 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 memorandum. What the heck does that mean? Anyone? Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Memorandum? Memorandum?
I got you.
What is it? What is a memorandum? A memo, yes. Have you heard of the phrase memo before? So, if someone were to write you a memo, what is it? It's a note, right? So, oftentimes what happens within a business setting is people will write a memorandum about things that happen because they don't have a receipt. You don't have a check. So we're going to have a memorandum that's going to be using. And if you see the M for a memorandum, you should have like little bells and whistles going off in your head, and it should sound like this. Ding, 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 ding. Guys at the top row, you're not listening. You're on your own, and you're not even on the work together. I can see that. You know how? Because it has a red line. Red line means on your own. Blue is work together. I see where you are. Dorn.
You have red too. I'm so confused.
Blue.
Where do you see red on the other page? No, it's like outlining the...
Look at Patsa's. Look at Dorn. Mm-hmm. There we go. When you see M's, you should have bells and whistles going off in your head because it should tell you this transaction will take 2 lines. Bing, 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 bing. Must take 2 lines in a journal because I am not using any special columns. Got it? It's not always true, but for a vast majority of time, if you have an M for a source document, it should take 2 lines in our journal. And that's what I need to teach you. So the very first transaction on April 1st says, bought supplies on account from Palm Supply, $500, M1. Bing, 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 M, 2 lines, M, 2 lines. So my transaction, bought supplies on an account from Palm Supply. So you already hear supplies, right? So we know supplies is not a special column. So we know supplies has to be written here. We also have accounts payable, Palm Supply. Do we have a special column for accounts payable, Palm Supply? Oh, no, we don't. So I have supplies and accounts payable Palm Supply that need to be written under account title. I already warned you, Applia is picky. What one has to go first? The debit account, right? So accounts payable, Palm Supply is a liability. Liabilities have what for normal balance? Credit, because it's on the right-hand side of the T account. So do we owe accounts payable Palm Supply more money or less money? More. So it is going up. So our accounts payable is going up and our assets are going up. Assets are on the left side of the accounting equation, so it needs to be debited. So let's go ahead and put our date in of the 5th. And then I have to put in supplies first. Source document is going to be M1, M standing for memorandum. Bing, 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 bells and whistles. I must go on 2 lines. I'm going to put 500 as a debit. Then I'm going to put accounts payable, Palm Supply, and that's going to go 500 as a credit. I am not putting anything at all in these columns over here. There's also, look at it, this is one transaction that takes 2 lines. When I look at line 1, I have a credit and I have a debit. When I look at line 2, I have a debit and I have a credit. When I look at line 3, I only have a debit because this transaction takes 2 lines and I have a debit and a credit going together. You will also notice for the date, 1 transaction, 1 date number. I don't put the date of the 5th on line 4 as well. I only have to put my source document once because this transaction takes 2 lines. You will have an assignment coming up later on where you're going to find that every date column is open for you to enter in, and if you put 5 twice, it will mark it wrong. It will also give you a spot that you could put M1 twice. It will also mark it wrong. So, a transaction, you write the date once, and you write the source document once. Okay? Our next transaction, paid cash for insurance, $300. Woo! Bing, bing, bing. Date is the 7th. Lincoln, what are my 2 accounts? Cash and insurance. Is there a special column for cash? Yes. Is there a special column for insurance? No. So what one do we write in there? Extra bing bings because you said prepaid insurance, not even insurance. Yes, nice. Prepaid insurance. What's my source document? C2. Bells and whistles going off in your head because why? C check, C cash, C credit. So we know cash has to be credited for $300. I like to start with the ones like I know. So if cash is being credited, that would mean what to general? Has to be debited. Okay. The 9th, paid cash and account to Palm Supply, $250, C3. Melina, what are my 2 accounts if I pay cash on account? Yes, that's awesome. Got it. Okay, so is there a special column for cash?
Yes.
Is there a special column for accounts payable Palm Supply? No, so we have to put in here accounts payable Palm Supply. Source document is C3. Bells and whistles going off because what?
Credit.
Cash has to be credited for $250. So if cash is getting credited, Melina, where am I going to debit it? What column? General debit for $250. Oh, receivable! Look at that. My fast fingers. What did I do? I'm like, how did I get something wrong? I will say Applia does that if you don't watch it. If you go real fast, it will give you an accounts receivable and an accounts payable for Palm Supply, and you need to know which one it is. Okay? So, if you have not tried the on your own, try it. Now I should see red lines up there that you're on your own versus your work together.